2020 wasn't exactly the best year, especially not for anime. There weren't many shows last year, and among these, only a few were actually outstanding, at least in my opinion. But I have to say, I enjoyed watching multiple anime, even if they didn't have a complex story or completely new concept, as long as they were just fun. I've wanted to make a video of my favorite anime last year for quite some time now, and yeah, here it is. Oh, and since English isn't my native language, sorry for the pronunciation of some words or perhaps weird sentence structure or other mistakes. And I also want to add that of course I haven't seen every anime released last year. There are a few sequels that I still have to watch. Sono Oregairo Season 3 for example, since I have just recently finished the first 2 seasons and not yet started the third one. Oh, and since Attack on Titan Season 4 is part of the Winter 2021 season, I won't talk about it, at least in this video. If I remember, I leave timestamps in the description for each anime. The first anime I want to talk about is God of High School. If you're a fan of shonen, then this is exactly for you because it is a fighting shonen. It has good fights and the animation just looks awesome. It starts very promising, but it gets weaker over time, and yeah, a big reason for this is the weird pacing. It starts really good, but then they somehow squeeze the plot for 24 episodes into 13 and it becomes very confusing. Oh, and I think I've never seen an anime with a relatively high score at the beginning on my anime list that dropped so hard after the last few episodes. But if you like good animation, over-the-top fights and martial arts, this can be a lot of fun. Even the last few episodes were so rushed that almost nothing makes sense and some powers just came out of nowhere. So just turn off your brain for the end of the anime because trying to understand what is happening won't really help and it just becomes even more confusing. But yeah, I had a lot of fun watching this weekly and I think if you're a fan of shonen, yeah, you will like it too. The next anime is My Next Life as a Villainess, All Roads Lead to Doom. Don't worry if you normally don't really like isekais, because this show is a bit different from most of the genre. It starts with the protagonist Katerina Claes, or Bakarina, as a young, not very nice, arrogant girl who trips over and then falls headfirst to the ground, which results in her suddenly remembering that she was a 70-year-old girl who died in an accident and then, yeah, was reborn into this new world. She then realizes that the world she now lives in reminds her of an automata game she loved to play in her old life, and that her name is exactly the same as the villain in this game. In the game, Fortune Lover, you can play different routes with different characters. The protagonist of the game is named Maria, and if you win a route, the villain Katerina either dies in the end or gets exiled. Katerina then realizes that if she behaves different than the Katerina in the game, she can maybe survive and avoid the things that would happen to her in the game. The first few episodes introduce every character, and as of episode 4 or so, she reaches the point where the story in the game started. If you expect a very serious anime or something like that, you will be disappointed. But if you want to watch a lighthearted anime with a lovable idiot as protagonist, you will get that. She can be a huge idiot sometimes. For example, for not realizing things like that because of her nice behavior, things will turn out very different than in the game. For example, that everybody, and I mean literally everybody, even the protagonist of the game, Maria, will fall for a Katerina instead of Maria in the game. Seriously, how can every single person fall for you? Okay, I think I understand how after seeing her hair in the past life, people with hair like that have special powers, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I had fun with this anime even if it is another isekai. The next anime is The Misfit of Demon King Academy. Imagine Saitama as a demon king who returns after 2000 years, goes to a magic school and tries to reclaim his title as the one and only true demon king, and you basically have the story of this anime. The protagonist Enos Volligord willingly sacrificed his life to stop a war between humans and demons, hoping to be reborn in a more peaceful time in the future, only to find out that during the years he was away, someone changed the history and everyone now remembers him differently. Nobody knows his real name and personality, so his new goal is to make everyone realize that he is the real demon king and they believe in false facts. I think the anime is very funny and Enos is so OP that he can destroy everyone and everything if he just wants to. I mean, he killed someone with his fucking heartbeat. He has no problem with showing everyone that the Demon King has returned and is still way stronger than they could ever imagine. The show doesn't take itself very seriously and was probably my second favorite comedy last year. At number 7 I have Moriarty the Patriot. I always liked Sherlock Holmes, so I was a bit hyped after I heard about an anime with Moriarty as the protagonist. I think everyone knows Sherlock Holmes or has at least heard his name. And if you don't know him, he's very intelligent, a bit strange and solves crimes. Moriarty is, I would say, his biggest enemy. I know that what I just told is a very short summary, but I think it's enough to understand the anime. The anime has Moriarty as its protagonist. Sometimes he also solves crimes, but has a different approach, and instead of handing the criminals over to the police, he punishes or lets the victims punish them, what often results in a few corpses more. I think it is interesting to see everything from Moriarty's point of view and to see a different version of Moriarty, Sherlock and other characters. I personally liked the story a lot more after Sherlock's introduction in the middle of the anime, but the first few episodes were also entertaining. The next anime is Saw of God. I know many people thought that the adaptation wasn't as good as the webtoon, but since I first watched the anime and then started to read the webtoon, I think that the anime was pretty good as well. In this world, there is a tower that grants you every desire if you are chosen to enter it and reach the top. The story revolves around Bam, a boy who basically knows nothing about his world. After the only person he knows enters the tower, he tries to follow her and is able to enter the tower without being chosen, what is almost impossible and only a few special people have achieved yet. He has to find new allies to survive the tower and eventually find the girl he follows. I know that doesn't sound too interesting, but the cast is just awesome, especially Kun, even if the main character is a bit boring at the start. Or just read the webtoon, it is good and becomes even better over time. I feel like I have used a lot of broken English in this video so far. The first anime in my top 5 is ID Invaded. I don't know how to describe the plot of this anime, but I think it has a lot of similarities with Inception. In this anime you can enter someone's mind with particles they left at a crime scene. It revolves around a group of, I would say, detectives that use these particles to enter a virtual world, where they have to solve a crime created by the world to reveal the identity of the culprit. Every virtual world is completely different and sometimes very strange. It's not that easy to explain, but a very good anime, and since every world is different, you can end up in a giant desert or on board an infinite train or in a world with flying islands. So it doesn't get boring is what I'm trying to say. I think everyone watching anime this year knows Jujutsu Kaisen and knows that it's good. I don't think I have to explain the story. It is a very entertaining shonen and I think you should give it a try if you haven't started it yet. I haven't watched the last 2 or 3 episodes, but the animation and the fight so far were very good, and I heard that Mappa's adaptation is even better than the source material. I was just a bit surprised that they introduced so many characters in the beginning and then almost ignored them for 6 or 7 episodes. But yeah, I like this kind of shonen that is a little bit darker sometimes, even if Jujutsu Kaisen still has a lot of comedy. It's very similar to Demon Slayer, I would say. The first anime in my top 3 is Great Pretender. Great Pretender and ID Invaded are probably the most overlooked good anime in 2020. I really like Great Pretender, it is just something new that I haven't seen much in anime. And before I talk about the actual story, I want to talk about the absolutely incredible animation by Wit Studio. Attack on Titan, Vinland Saga and now Great Pretender, they really know how to make an anime look nice. The anime is about a group who steals money from not so nice rich people by tricking them. It isn't perfect but really good, and every arc focuses on a different member of the group. I think the third arc is my favorite. It has only 4 episodes and feels different compared to the first, second and final. It also focuses on my favorite character. The only things that bothered me a bit were the sometimes not so realistic solutions and the last arc was a bit too long in my opinion. But other than that, Great Pretender is very enjoyable and I can definitely recommend it if you want to watch an anime that doesn't really feel like an anime. I think this is the best way to describe it. The only problem is that it's only available for Netflix, but I'm sure there's another way if you really want to see it and don't have Netflix. For a long time I couldn't decide if ReZero Season 2 is my favorite anime in 2020 or at second place, but my final decision was that I like the anime at the number 1 spot a little bit more. I really loved watching the second season of ReZero, especially since we had to wait so long for a sequel, and then it turned out to be as good as it is. ReZero is my favorite isekai and I just love it. I could talk very long about it, but the video is already long enough. I just want to say that I originally thought that it would have no competition for my favorite anime in 2020. As I said earlier, AOT doesn't count because it is part of the winter 2021 season, and I thought without Attack on Titan no anime could reach ReZero Season 2 for me, but no, it is in my second place, just a bit behind my favorite. There are a few reasons why it isn't at the top for me. One reason is, and I don't know if it was only for me, but I was sometimes a little bit confused and I don't think that it was the attention to make the people watch it confused at some of these scenes. I don't have a problem with confusing stories, but I felt like that it wasn't intentional all the time, and it took me a rewatch to understand some things better. But maybe it was my fault, I don't know. Another reason is that it felt repetitive sometimes. I know it is ReZero and that is more or less the whole point, but I felt like I have seen a few things too often. I know that is just me personally, but I feel like I know the hideout may be too good, and there wasn't enough Rem. I know that is again something personally, but come on. She was only 5 minutes there and that slept the whole season. And I don't think that will change in the second part of the season either. Of course I want to talk about the good things as well. I again liked Subaru, even more than the last season, and he was by far my favorite part. Echidna was also awesome and interesting, and I liked Emilia a little bit more than last season. All witches were very interesting, even if they only showed up for a few minutes. And I think this was a very good sequel, even if I like season 1 more. Before I talk about my favorite anime last year, I want to name a few honorable mentions. I'm just going to name them and won't talk long about them, but I also like Dorohedoro. It was an interesting world with interesting characters and actually good CGI. Tonikawa Over the Moon for You. Nothing special but very wholesome and I liked it. Indus Research Review is by far the best anime last year. Jokes aside, I was glad that it was something different and very funny. And finally, I'm sure Oregairu Season 3 would be at least in my top 5. And my favorite anime last year was Lost Love is War Season 2. I loved the second season and I had to stop multiple times because I couldn't stop laughing. It is of course another anime I'm sure almost everybody has heard of. I have to say I was a bit surprised that I liked the second season so much after just the first 2 episodes, because I didn't really like the first season, but I immediately liked the second season. I don't even know why I like the sequel so much more. Maybe because I actually like Kaguya now. In the first season I was happy as soon as Kaguya wasn't part of the scene, but I really like her now. Mao Ishigami and Chika is also always awesome, and Miko was a very good addition in my opinion. I still really like Shirogane, and the side characters this time were just fantastic. I really like Hayasaka. Miyuki's sister is good too, and Daddy Dio is just incredible. But yeah, that was my top 10 favorite anime last year, and I hope the video isn't too long. I know I'm a bit late with this video, but hey, it is at least till February. Have a good day, and yeah, bye!
殺相大金